Welcome to 100 Lunches. I'm Jessica Nelson.
And I'm Stephanie Lindsay. We're the founders of Etch Design Group.
Each episode, we'll have intimate conversations that transcend the usual lunch meeting. We'll dig into the lives of fascinating people in the design industry, and we'll ask the big questions, the small questions, and maybe even a few that sound like it came straight from a fortune cookie.
Our vision for this podcast is to uncover the hidden gems in what led each of our guests to their calling in life, from childhood dreams to favorite lunchtime meals.
Buckle up, you're in for a treat. Welcome. Today we are joined by Rona Graf of Grace Blue Interior Design in Costa Mesa, California. Rona is originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and is a former educator. After a big move in life to sunny California, Rona discovered that her true passion in life was in interior design. She quickly combined her master's degree in education with a design degree from the Interior Designers Institute in Newport Beach, California, and shortly thereafter, Grace Blue Interiors was born. Her Midwest roots and values, combined with her love of travel, contribute to her unique design approach and sophisticated design aesthetic. A yoga instructor for over 16 years, Rona's approach to design and service is often described as holistic by her clients and colleagues. I am so excited to hear about your story today, Rona, and we are so excited to have you here on the show. So thank you for joining us.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Oh, we're so excited to hear more about what led you to design. I'm so curious to know about your days in Pittsburgh and give us a little background on what your life was like growing up there and what were your passions early on?
I joke with everyone. It was a great place to be from. I love Pittsburgh and I love going back to the city, and my family, the majority of them are still in that area. I love Pennsylvania. I miss the seasons. I will say that. I do not miss the snow and the sleet and the rain. But what I miss about it most is it's it's actually one of the biggest small town, big towns, if you can. Like it still has a small town mentality, but it's a great place for families, and just the culture and the people, the morals and the values are really good. So growing up there, I was influenced a lot by nature because I grew up, basically my backyard was woods. Yeah. And so I have a lot of memories, and I think that's where my love of nature came from, because I was surrounded by nature a lot. And also the history there. It's phenomenal. If you haven't been to Pittsburgh, honestly, some of the most amazing homes and architecture are in Pittsburgh and the surrounding areas. And the town that I grew up in is a small town north of Pittsburgh called Newcastle. And fun fact, it's the fireworks capital of America. So it's really hard for me to be impressed by fireworks shows.
Yeah.
And the city was actually, at the turn of the century, the fastest growing city in the country, which it's not now. It's kind of a depressed town because it's on the steel belt. But the homes there, I mean, we have Andrew Carnegie and all of the people that were in that area during that turn of the century that went to the outskirts of the big city, Pittsburgh, and made these beautiful mansions. So to me, if I had all the money in the world, I'd go back and restore all of these homes.
I love that. And How did you come to education? Did you know you wanted to be a teacher?
Funny. That's why I tell people, like, where you end up is where you're supposed to be. I actually went to the University of Pittsburgh for nutrition and dietetics. Okay. I'm a huge Steeler fan, and I actually had this dream as a young kid. I wanted to be a nutritionist for the Steelers.
Yeah.
And I've always been super health conscious, and I think that's where my yoga had come into it. But I went to school for science, dietetics, nutrition, and I soon realized my freshman year, sleeping on the biology and the chemistry book through osmosis wasn't going to get me through those science classes. And I was a good student. I just really did not like the science, and I couldn't see myself in a hospital setting, and that's where the majority of that work is. So I quickly had to revamp, what am I going to do? And funny enough, Pennsylvania has a ton of teaching programs. It's a great school to be a teacher, but I didn't go to school for teaching, and I've always enjoyed teaching. Even as a little girl, I was always teaching my cousins, and I love learning. I really do. And I love explaining things to people, and I love teaching people things. So had to quickly shift gears and realize that University of Pittsburgh only had a master's program for teaching. So I created my own undergraduate degree so that I could get accepted into the master's program for education. And so that is kind of my background. Fast forward, I graduated with a master's degree, and then I quickly decided to move to California 2 months after I graduated. And I told my mother, okay, I'm moving to California. And she was like, wait, what? I said, I always told you I was. And she was like, but you don't have a job. You just graduated. I'm like, yeah, I'll get one. And so that's just how my mind always worked. And my mom was like, I look back, I have a 16-year-old right now, and I can't even imagine like 6 years from now him telling me that. Like, I'd be like, what? And she would tell me, Rona, there was no stopping you. And I'm like, yeah, that's true. It's just always who I was. And I always thought the glass is half full. There was never an option. Like, people would say, well, you don't have a job. Well, why wouldn't someone, I'm sure there's jobs, and why wouldn't they hire me? So I literally got in the car, rented a car, drove out to California, straight through. I actually had a friend that we traded, and he was like, I'll go out to California with you. Landed in Huntington Beach, sat on the beach, and the beach looked huge to me, like insanely big. And it's still a big beach, but it's crazy how your perspective, like I was a fish in this giant new fishbowl, and the world seemed so big to me. So I sat there and I went, okay, now what? And
Love
like
this.
it's a blur. It's a blur, but it's such a cool journey that I can look back and reflect on. It was 24 years ago.
Yeah.
And I got up, and I don't even know if people know what Kinko's is, but right?
Oh, we do.
Kinko's was like, that's where you went to get on the computer and to make copies. And so I went to the local Kinko's, and I went online, and I was like, okay, job search. What school districts are hiring? And Newport Mesa was one of the schools that were hiring. This is a funny story because I'm a very big believer in affirmation, positive thoughts, and just putting it out there, and the energy, and you attract what you think about. I'm really into that. So I walked into this education center of Newport Mesa School District, walked right in and brought my resume in, and the HR lady was sitting there, and she said, oh, hi. And I said, hi, I'm here to get a job. And she was like, okay. There's a stack of resumes on her desk. And I started chit-chatting with her, and I said, I'm from Pennsylvania. I just got here. She was like, I'm from Pennsylvania.
No way.
Yeah. And I said, really? Where from? And she's like, Johnstown. And I'm like, oh, my roommate is from Johnstown. And they knew the same people.
Oh my gosh.
She grabbed my resume, and she said, I have a perfect job for you. I'm going to put this right on top. And she told me there's a new school that just opened up. There's a 6th grade position. And as she said that, the principal of that school walked by, and she said, Joanne, this is Rona. She's here from Pennsylvania. I think you should meet her. She'd be a great position to fill your position.
What?
Like, yeah, it was literally in the stars lined up. She set me up for an interview like 2 days later. And basically, I pretty much got the job and drove back to Pennsylvania to get the rest of my stuff. And she called me as I was pulling up. The principal said, hey, my mom walks out, and she's like, there's a Miss Joanne on the phone. And I said, oh yeah. She was like, she wants to know if you can be out here on Monday for the start of the school. And I'm like, okay. Literally got a one-way flight, brought all my suitcases, and that was it. Never looked back.
That's amazing.
It's kind of funny, huh?
I love you and I are very, very similar.
100%.
Yeah.
I always tell, like, my husband and I will get in a conversation about something, and I don't ever think about something not happening. Like, if I'm going to put my mind to it, it's going to happen. And so he'll always be like, well, how can you be so sure? And I'm like, well, why wouldn't you be sure? Like, if this is what I want to do, I'm going to do it. And so there was never anything that would ever stop me. My mom would say the same thing, like your mom. It's like, they just go, and as a parent, it's such a weird thing to think about having a child like that, but also I love it at the same time. We want to be able to instill that in our children, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my son is exactly that way. So I'm bracing myself.
Aww.
journey, right? Like,
It
you
is.
gotta open yourself up for, I guess, more patience in that manner.
Yeah, absolutely. But
Yeah.
I say I saw a meme once that said, my child is exactly like me. Well
Yep.
played, Karma. Well played.
Exactly. Oh, I
Yeah.
love it so much.
Well, so you found your place, it
Yes.
sounds like, but at that point you hadn't found your passion really. So
No.
what happened then?
Okay, so I become a teacher. I'm a sixth grade teacher, and I love it. I love the kids. I love teaching. I was gung ho. My first year, I wrote a grant for technology. I was always tech savvy, and I was like, why aren't we using technology for these kids? Blah blah blah. I wrote a grant for the school. I got all this equipment, and I love teaching. I to this day still keep in touch with a lot of my students. They're in their 30s now, and I was 22 when I started. So I was only 11 years older than them. My brother was the same age as the sixth grade students I was teaching. So he's
Wow.
11 years younger. So that's how close. And so my student, and funny, one of my students actually interned for me as an interior designer, and she's now
Wow.
since started her own firm. So full
Wow.
circle. But fast forward into that year of teaching, it was a little bit of a dramatic experience. My teaching partner, it was a small school, there was only two of us. And she ended up resigning, kind of got harassed by the principal. The principal ended up stepping down. The sixth
Mm.
grade teaching partner of mine stepped down. And I was left to kind of run the whole sixth grade program. And at an elementary school, that's the top tier. And I was like, oh, okay. So I kind of had to step into this leadership role really quickly. As a 22-year-old, I'm meeting with, we're in Newport Beach. So
Yeah.
I'm meeting with a lot of top executives, parents,
Yeah.
demanding parents. And I actually learned a lot about parenting from teaching.
Hmm.
I really did. I can give a whole TED talk on that. Um,
Okay, well, we want to hear that TED talk.
Honestly, it's people compliment me on my son, and I say it's because I learned what not to do and what to do from my experience of teaching. Because I
Yeah.
could see the kids from the parents and the parenting, and honestly, the snippet I can give you is put the responsibility on your child. Do not accept responsibility for their behavior. Put it all on them.
Mhm.
So moving on, I love teaching. However, it was difficult. Not the kids, the parents were difficult, which fast forward really helps me now in our industry with dealing
Mhm.
with, demanding clients. And you're dealing with the type of personality that wants things when they want them now. And there's no saying no, which is what our industry is. It's hospitality, it's service, right?
Mhm.
So that's great. Learn from that. But the breaker for me when I quit teaching, because I wasn't truly happy, it was a lot of mundane, I'm going to be doing the same thing for the next 30 years of my life.
Yeah.
Like that is a creative. If anything, I should have been an art teacher. I was much more fluid. I was very artistic. My classroom always looked super thematic because I believe that people are emotionally engaged when they walk into a space and feel good in the space.
Yeah.
So, especially children. Children need visual stimulation. They also need things to look orderly. They need things to feel good. So when I
Mhm.
walked into a classroom as a child and it was dark and dingy and boring, I'm like, I'm not motivated. I'm not inspired. So there's a reason why Disneyland and theme parks are geared towards children because they're like over the toply done. They're beautifully done. They're designed. And it's like, why kids go to those parks, So why would your classroom be boring? You
Mm.
got to engage these kids. You
Yes.
got to find this commonality of what their brains, because they haven't seen the muck of the world yet.
Mhm.
Everything's a new experience. Um, Fast forward, my principal loved me. She came in a new principal the next year. It's my second year of teaching, and I'm on the fence. I'm like, I feel like I'm a fish swimming upstream.
Mhm.
I'm bucking the system. Everything I'm doing is, why are you doing that? Just do this. Just do
The
this.
person everyone loves.
Yeah. So I'm like, wait, this is the whole reason why I became a teacher, because I was that kid that wanted to know why. I didn't want to hear the answer just because. And I just tell me the reasons why. I was a very inquisitive child. And so I could relate to a lot of these kids. And in my theory, there's always going to be the straight A students. They're fine. They're going to be great worker bees one day. We need that. Great. Then you have the class clowns and you have the kids that are like not doing so well. Those kids are probably going to be your boss someday.
Yeah.
I mean,
very true.
It's the truth. And then you have the kids that are in the middle that are just like doing exactly what they're supposed to. And, you know, those are the ones, unfortunately, that get left behind.
Because they're quiet.
They're quiet and they're not getting the attention because they're great. You don't have to deal with them. So I was really good at kind of managing all of those different types of kids and giving them all the attention they need. My principal walked in and I was doing things that were kind of what we did in Pennsylvania, a little bit fast forward. And I thought going to California, quite frankly, was going to be so brand new experience. We're going to be fast forward thinkers. Sorry, California. No, you're not. You're behind. Like they really are in a lot of education ways, like the programs they have. So I was doing things in Pennsylvania that California hadn't even caught up to. So I would bring in all the parents from these kids. I mean, one of our parents was a National Geographic underwater filmographer.
Wow.
I mean, we'd have these parents that you could tap into and bring them in to speak to the kids on why it's important to understand geometry. So then they can go, oh, you need to know geometry? Yes. Let me tell you why. Because you need to calculate the distance from the camera to the shark. Now you have their attention. Now you're getting kids engaged. Okay, so I do that with all different professions. I would bring them in. I would have them write about it. So we're hitting that standard. I would have them create an artistic. So you hit the kids that are artistic, visual. I would have them speak about it. At the end of the year, I had them create a career fair. And they all were able to see all these different professions. They were able to kind of choose, understand why and what schooling they need. Do they need schooling? Do they need college? All these things I would do. And it hit every single standard. It just wasn't in the textbook. I did all the textbook stuff. The principal called me in her office and she said, this is the day I quit teaching. She went, I need you to think inside the box. And I went, wow. Yeah. And I sat back. Like I get emotional right now. I'm like, wow, you mean that? And it's literally the reason why I quit teaching, and it's on my door in my design studio. I was like, nope, I'm doing my own thing and I will never think inside the box. So,
well, Jess can relate to you on all of the manifesting and positive vibes, and I can completely relate to you on the education side. My husband and I own an Acton Academy, which is a private school for K through 12, and it's a really small school here, but we focus basically on everything that you're talking about, like having professionals come in, teach them, helping them find their passion. Kind of relates to this podcast in general, is helping people find their passion early in life so that they don't go, I don't want my child to go through law school and then go to a law firm for the first time and realize this is not what I want to do. They just spent years and a lot of debt to get to that point. And there's a lot happening in public education right now that is inside the box instead of outside the box thinking.
Oh, absolutely. It's one of my biggest passions too. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's like, if we would just focus on what these children's gifts are and foster that gift and not try to put them in this box of like, you need to do this, you need to go to this school. No, you don't. Like, there's so many things. Like, find your passion, find what you're good at, and like hone in on that and just develop it, because that's your gift. And everything I do now, I was able, fortunately, you know, early on, I went back to design school at 26 and I was able to see that, and I honed in on it. I'm like, what I do right now is everything I did as a child. I get to teach. I get to be creative. I get to be an artist, and I get to work with people, and I love it, and an entrepreneur. So that's what needs to happen more in schools.
Yeah. So how did you get introduced to design?
So at the time I got married early and bought a house, my first townhome with my husband at the time. And I designed the house, and my best friend, this is during my, what am I going to do with my life? I don't want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
But I put all my passion into my new townhome that I got, and I painted it and did all these fun decor things and was obsessed with model homes because it was new. Like that was 2003. That
Yeah.
was when like the building boom was happening in
Mhm.
Orange County here in California. I watched like plains of fields go from that to like these developments of homes and things like that. So my best friend was like, "What do you mean you don't know what to do?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean," he was like, "Look at your house." And I looked around. He was like, "Why aren't you an interior designer?" And I went, "Oh. Oh. Oh."
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, I can do this for a living." He was like, "Yeah. And didn't your grandmother own a furniture store when you grew up?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Oh, it all started coming back to me. I'm like, "That's." So,
Mhm.
like, my early days getting samples of fabric from my grandmother and literally decorating my tree house. So, like, it all came flooding back to me. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that can be a job. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have to own a furniture store, which is what she did, but I can literally do all of that and do what I just did and make that my job. Done.
Yeah.
It encompassed everything. And it just like a light bulb went off. And so he kind of set me a goal. He was like, go look at 3 design schools and see what works. And I did. Literally that week, I scheduled 3 meetings with 3 different design schools. And at the time, Interior Designers Institute in Newport was accredited and seemed like the best program. And I enrolled and took a fast course because I felt like I was so behind the 8 ball. And I finished design in my design degree in 2 years. And while I was in design school, I started working for a model home firm. And then I quit because I was ready to start my own firm. That was it. I needed to get back into it. And the economy crashed.
Ah,
Yeah.
But it was a great time because I literally started my design firm the same week that I found out I was pregnant with my son.
Oh, wow.
okay, we
Yeah.
have way too many crossovers.
Oh,
This is yeah. Okay, well,
Really?
so I also went to Interior Designers Institute in
Did
Newport
you
Beach.
really?
Mhm.
Wow.
Yep. And with the month that we started Etch Design Group is the month I got pregnant with our first child.
Wow. Oh, I got chills.
Mhm.
Wow.
So we were meant to be, and the listeners don't know, but we were connected through a mutual friend.
Yes.
And so we hadn't ever met before
No.
today.
No, not at all. And I love
Yeah,
it.
our mutual
Yeah.
friend said,
never.
"Hey, you should reach out. You guys need to
Absolutely.
know each other."
Aw.
So that's
Yes.
amazing.
That's
Yeah.
so funny. Very similar. Yeah. We were
Yeah.
definitely meant to meet. The universe said, here you are.
Yep.
100%. Yep. You never know how one interaction will change
Yeah.
the future, you know? We'll see
Absolutely.
where this relationship goes. I'm curious to know because it sounds like even though you left teaching, you still have a passion for teaching. You love design, you have a passion for design. We know from your background that you also love yoga. So you have multiple things in your life that you know fulfill you.
Yes.
Wow. How did you know that all of those things were part of your journey, like and fulfilling to you?
Um, Good question. I think just kind of staying true to yourself of like what internally, like that little whisper in yourself that says, this is, you're on the right path, just do this. And like, I feel like anything that hasn't been right in my life, I knew it. I just ignored my gut. I'm a firm believer in trusting your gut because it usually is that little whisper in you that tells you you're on the right path. And if you truly feel like you're doing the right thing, you feel good. You feel aligned with yourself. And
Mhm.
so everything that I've done, like I think that's why I taught yoga for so long. I got such fulfillment out of it because I was one doing this amazing like practice of like physical and mental, like that was my de-stressor, but I was sharing that gift with other people. And that was where I kind of, once I quit teaching, I went into teaching yoga. And I did that for 16 years until, I started missing. My business got bigger. My son had sporting events. And so eventually I had to kind of like, okay, I got to stop giving in that direction. I got to start giving to myself and my son and my business.
Mhm.
And so that's where I, meandered off of teaching yoga. But I teach now, honestly, in my business. I teach my clients, I teach my staff, the design profession, etc. And I find myself like constantly teaching our community. And I've gone to a friend of mine's design biz retreat now for the past 5 years. And this year he asked me to speak because I would always end up gravitating with all these people, attendees, and they would ask me all these questions because starting my business and going through all of these things, I've learned so much. And
Yeah.
I'm a really good mix of a left brain and a right brain person. And a
Mhm.
lot of designers I know are very, very creative,
Yes.
but they don't put as much effort and emphasis on the business side of it. And if you're going to do this as a business, you really need to know business first. And I
Mhm.
think that's why there's a lot of successful people that don't really have design backgrounds, but they have a business sense and they immediately hit the ground running because it is first a business, unless you want to do it as a hobby.
Right.
But
Mhm.
if you're doing this as a business and you want to be recognized as a professional, then you need to know your numbers. You need to know how business works.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but
I
I think just go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like our stories align so much. Like there's so much we could talk about right now. When it comes to you mentioned the retreats and how you kind of end up in this little group where everyone's asking you questions. I feel like Steph and I are very much the same way. And we love to be able to share our story and share our experiences and the do's and the don'ts and the things that we've learned and the things that we would never do again and the things that we would always do again. I feel like it's such a wealth of knowledge. And when you can share that with other people and they can grow from it, like it provides so much, just I think personal satisfaction to be able to help other people. And
Absolutely.
it's very rewarding,
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately I have a deep need to like give back, and
Mhm.
I think using your gift as something that's God given to you, like why not share it with other people?
Right.
Mhm.
And this industry is one that can be very hit and miss, I feel like, when it comes to sharing knowledge. There's a wide range of people in our industry that are just like us, where it's our information can be your information. Like whatever we have in our brain can be, we'll share that with you. And then there's also this other side, which is unfortunate, but it's very closed off. And it's like they look at everyone as competition and they look at everyone as, well, maybe, they could get the project that I'm trying to get. So I don't want to share anything with them. And that's so unfortunate because I feel like we can all help each other out so much. And we all, just I think need to have that mindset of being able to share what what has gotten us here today. And I think that's so much of why we started this podcast, because it gets stories out there. It gets, people
I
talking
love it.
about, why we do what we do and the things that we've learned and the things that we, would never do again. So I think this is just such a valuable thing to talk about.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I think it goes back to kind of, glass half full. It's just your mindset.
Yep.
And it's an abundance mindset versus a scarcity mindset. And unfortunately, a lot of people have a scarcity mindset, which you don't need to.
Yeah.
There's so much work. There's so many, and ultimately at the end of the day, people are going to connect with you as a
Mhm.
human. And, it's not a competition. It really isn't. I
Yeah.
just believe in that, like share. And when I started, almost 20 years ago, I literally was just like young teacher trying to figure out what I wanted to do, knocking on designers' doors, literally. And one of
Yeah.
them like slammed the door in my face, said, "Yeah, we're not giving you any information." I'm
Mhm.
like, I just want to know what it's like to be a designer.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't even tell me that. I'm like, wow. But
Mhm.
I think the industry's changed a lot. I think there's more of us than people that want to kind of hoard,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which is a good thing because I think the internet has shown that sharing your knowledge, sharing it's good because it elevates our entire profession. First of all,
Yep.
Mhm.
the more we're transparent with each other and the more we stand together, so that I've helped people raise their rates. I'm all about that
Yeah.
because if you have a similar rate than me, then we all look like we know what we're doing together.
Mhm.
Exactly.
You know,
Right.
Yep. Absolutely. So when you think about the early days, how long were you at your first firm before you started your design firm?
So I worked at the model home firm for about a year, no,
Okay.
over a year, just over a year. And then I saw the economy kind of starting to tank, and I was like, I don't want to really stay here. And I was only doing one aspect of it. It was a larger firm, and I was doing CAD design, and I was like the one that put all the spec packs together and the drawings. So, which funny enough, it literally couldn't be further from my personality. Like I am not a sit at my desk all day and stare at a computer and draw CADs. So
Yeah.
I envy people who can do it, but I'm a butterfly. I need to be out and about and right. But I did that. I learned a lot. I understood the whole process from that standpoint. But I wanted to start my own firm. And so I went and called a girlfriend up who had her own firm for a few years. And I said, can I come shadow you? So not only did my family think I was crazy for leaving a teaching profession with a pension and a retirement, all this stuff, and a good job, um, to go to design school to start back at the bottom, making nothing, to now going to work for a friend for free.
Like, are you okay?
Yeah. And I'm like, yes, trust me. Again, going back to my gut, this is what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I trusted my gut and I did it. I worked for her alongside her for about 7 months. She got pregnant and I helped her a lot of the way. I'd like feed her in the car and I just watched her busy life. And I'm like, you need to eat. And so that's like the nutritionist in me. I'm like, you need to eat for that baby. She's busy, busy, busy. So I got a taste of like, wow, this is totally different than my world in the model home firm. She's like rushing from client to client, meeting. And then fast forward those 7 months, I decide, okay, I'm ready to start my own business. And that's when I found out I got pregnant. I was like, okay, all right. Now we're talking. So
yeah, then it gets serious.
What piece of advice do you wish you knew back then that you know now? What piece of advice could you give someone kind of just starting out in this world? A bit of your knowledge, if you will.
I do believe that it's a really good idea to work for a firm, especially if you want to run your own firm and be honest, like, hey, my goal is to run my own firm.
Yeah.
Like I would appreciate that as an employer. Like I'm here to learn and that's it. Like we're creating baby birds to fly the nest, some of them, and some of them totally, could never do or have the tenacity or I say the kind of like craziness to be an entrepreneur because it does take a different type of person to do everything that you do as an entrepreneur or business owner. But go work for someone. I think I should have worked for someone a little bit longer and processes. I think now anyone that starts a business is at an advantage than we were. I was 20 years ago starting my business. There was not any of the Instagram posts, these podcasts, these learning. It was a very closed-minded, secretive world.
Yeah.
Now you have a lot of things to set your business up for success. You have templates, you have design processes, you have softwares. I mean, it was the wild, wild west when I started, and even more so before that. Like everything was created from scratch.
Although today we still have a vendor or two that use a fax machine and we're like, okay. Like we think we're behind.
Yeah.
It's weird, right? I'm like, it can't be that secretive that you need a fax machine. Step it up. PDF.
Right.
So funny.
Well, I could just talk to you for hours. I really hope that we can stay in touch and hear more about your story and listen more throughout the years as you grow. And really interested to see what you say at the Design Biz Retreat this fall.
Thank you.
What in terms of ending kind of on a lighter note, because this is the 100 Lunches podcast, what are your favorite mealtime memories? Are there any that stand out as particularly special?
Wait, did you say mealtime memories? Mealtime memories. Oh my gosh. Wow, there's so many. I'm a foodie.
Yeah.
I will have to say this is probably one of my best memories and it just recently happened. I brought my team to Paris for Maison
Wow.
d'Objet and Deco Off this past January. And we ended up having dinner from 11 p.m. in this little Italian cafe that was tiny till about 5 in the morning.
Wow. That's
And
amazing.
I saw in my team this like twist of like food and heart and passion and this click that they got it. And it was the whole purpose why I wanted them to go to Paris, because it's such a dear place in my heart. I love it. I've been going for years and getting inspired and coming back. And I think people always thought like, oh, there she is again, crazy with her ideas and patterns and colors. And I'm like, I want them to experience Paris. I want them to experience, I'm a very big proponent of hospitality in our office and serving and offering and the service. And I think it all stems from, you know, the Parisian culture and French culture. It's where food and service and hospitality really are. And so I was able to see them kind of get it at that meal, and them laughing and us enjoying, you know, essentially breaking bread together.
Yeah.
And they got it. They were like, we get it now. We get what you were talking about. I'm like, okay. So
That sounds
Such a great
amazing.
story. Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And I think we can all put ourselves in that place, in that space where we've had kind of a similar experience. And
yeah,
it's like when all of those things connect with each other at the same time, like you can just see a shift in someone's kind of, you know, emotions and, you know, personality and mental state. Like it's when the energy really starts to, you know, vibe, and it just becomes such a unique and cool experience, and one that you'll always remember, you know?
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
All the senses combined. So cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. Like Steph, I wish I could just sit here and talk to you all day. This has been so fun.
I know. Let's do this again.
I love it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And if someone wants to connect with you, learn more about you, how can they reach you?
Yeah, they can reach us at www.graceblue.com. There's no E at the end of blue. Or our Instagram handle is Grace Blue, GRACEBLU.
Amazing. All right. Well, go check her out. Thank you so much for your time today. And we hope to talk to you very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of 100 Lunches. We'd like to thank our guest today, Rona Graf. We really appreciate you sharing your story with us and joining our virtual lunch table.
Until next time, as always, stay curious, keep dreaming big, and remember, the best conversations are always better with the side of something delicious.
Mm-mm-mm.